Oak fought the wind and was broken, though it must and survived. Resilient reality, even if it is good than the one you had before. You can fight it, you can do nothing but scream about what you have lost, or you can accept that and try to put together something that's good. Resilience is the strength and speed of a response to adversity, and we can build it. It isn't about having a backbone, it's about strengthening the muscles around our backbone. Resilience is overcoming adversity while also potentially changing or even dramatically transforming that adversity. When we learn how to become resilient, we learn how to embrace the beautifully broad spectrum of the human experience. Good evening, everyone. This is Shelly Bisht, your host for this dazzling evening. Welcome to Infinite Rec Global Power Talks, chaired by Dr. Ratish Gupta. REC is a versatile social media platform designed and developed under the aegis of Educause Unite of Scholars, backed by the global community of educators, mental health professionals, motivational leaders, and life skill trainers. Carrying a vision to connect the global educational community for exchange of ideas, diversifying situation based learning, and having solution based learning is what we keep striving for. Our vision and mission is to serve the educational fraternity, ranging from scholars to students, with all possible solutions and opportunities to further enhance their skill sets. And here, with much gratitude and honor, I welcome our international guest, Ms. Sharon, a business leader, to talk on business resilience from Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce our special guest to you. Thrown into life with constant changes, Sharon has developed a unique set of skills and talents to not only weather the changes, but to use them to jumpstart new results in her life and her businesses. She has a passion for service to others, gaining great satisfaction from the successes of others she has had the pleasure to support. As a management consultant in corporate, private, and public sector organizations, she has had the opportunity to master life and business resilience skills, elevating the careers and business results of her clients and their organizations. Her expertise in change management, project management, and governance have combined together to create new empowering team and business practices consciously flowing for sustainable and scalable value. She just makes it work. Her passion now is to contribute this knowledge to the world while using her expertise in visioning, organization, pattern recognition, partnership skills, and listening conversations. So, welcome, Sharon. How
Thank
have
you.
you been?
Thank you very
Please
much,
accept
Shelley.
my warm welcome on our platform, and I would love to hear you out.
That's
Please
awesome.
tell us something about you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to share this expertise and experience that I've had through life. I really am enjoying this, and I'm going to share a few slides here for all of us to take a look at.
Yeah. So, please share your presentation with all of us.
It should be up. Let me know.
Yeah. Yes, we are able to see your presentation, Sharon.
Awesome. So today I'm going to talk about building business resilience. I learned a lot about resilience from my great-grandmother. My great-grandmother was born in 1899, lived through two world wars, a depression, the Spanish flu, and a number of other challenges through her life. And yet she was happy and she was fulfilled and was able to bounce from any challenge to the next challenge. When I started my career and I started my journey through life, I ended up having several moves, several career changes, several organizations that I was working with. And that actually helped to strengthen my resilience. And so what I've found is that in this day and age, as we've been going through the pandemic and so on, all of that has helped me flex my muscles in resilience and then now help to teach others about it. So businesses are started to thrive for years. Then we operate them with short-term targets. So what can happen along the way is that we have rocky shifting sands, where there's uncertainty, there's anxiety and stress happening, and the short term takes over the long-term objectives. So we start to adjust and shift and move in directions that are caused by the distress that's being expressed from the shifting sands. And I know that we've all globally been experiencing shifting sands through the world these days with the pandemic response. So we've had to shift, we've had to adjust, we've had to shift again and adjust again as the journey continues. In organizations, I've also felt that there's a lot of distrust. So shifting sands and uncertainty can generate distrust. And in response to distrust, we have a lot of segregation, intolerance showing up, some dehumanizing behaviors, putting people in boxes, making employees a number, and so on. And the response to that is either attack or defend. And so there's a lot of pedaling the bicycle really, really fast and running on that hamster wheel to gain back trust. And it's very challenging in very difficult times. And choices then are limited. Limited by what the people around us are talking about, what the organizations have set as their values. Some of them can become quite ruthless. Toxic cultures are generated, and there's that short-term view, which enables the use and abuse of people, resources, and so on in businesses. So why resilience? Why do we need to be resilient? Why do businesses need to be resilient? So if you could all enter in, why is resilience so important? What brought you here today, and what are we looking for in terms of getting into this resilience conversation? And why is it so important? Why is it critical to see? And maybe, Shelley, you can read some of the responses to me so I can use them. Shelley? Okay, I'll carry on in terms of my journey. Is corporations who don't adjust, aren't able to adapt, aren't able to shift with those shifting sands in time. Through my 30-year career, many of those organizations are no longer in existence because survival is not mandatory. No matter how big an organization you are or you're working with, it's not mandatory that that organization survives. So one of the ways to enable organizations and businesses to survive is to be able to shift, to be able to adapt. Now, not just to be able to shift and adapt to anything and jump in all directions. We need to actually adapt on purpose and move it forward in a right way so that the long-term objectives don't get lost when you're focused on the short-term objectives. I don't know if you've experienced it, that when we are focused on short-term objectives, the long-term objectives often get lost. People don't even know what they are, and they get lost quite quickly. So the question is, can we sustain both the short-term and the long-term objectives through changes and emerging challenges, and then adapt along the way? So the biggest question is, what is the source for building business resilience? This is, to me, was a critical question as I went down the path of looking at the different business organizations and challenges that have been faced over the last 30 years in our working world. And I realized that the source for building business resilience is actually people. And so the power of people is really critical to be addressed. And more importantly, is to be sustained on purpose. So looking at exactly what it is that we're trying to achieve and help people adjust and adapt as well as sustain it and do that in a conscious way. So it's really interesting along the journey. There's these two questions, and they have helped me immensely to discover the purpose and also the energy around creating resilience and being resilient. So when people are busy doing, if you stop and say, so what? So what? You're leaving your family behind. You're working extra hours. You're not doing. You're not even eating when you need to eat. So what? So what? And who cares? Who cares that you're doing all of that? Really, really important to understand that. And as an organization, so what that this project is behind? So what? And who cares that we're not going to meet our deadlines? What is that all about? What this does in asking these two questions, it finds the necessary components that generate the energy around the achievement of what you're looking to achieve, and the sufficient component pieces to rocket the results in new directions, which is what resilience is all about, is finding out the necessary and sufficient elements to contain and support the growth and rocket ship deployment of whatever you're looking to achieve. So how do you do that? You do that with value alignment. And values awaken purpose. And this is true personally. This is true on your project teams. This is true for the organization as a whole. What are the values of that organization? How do they align with all of the individuals in the organization? How do you instill those values in your staff, your team members, to awaken the energy that's necessary to flow on purpose and achieve on purpose what you're looking to achieve as an organization? Really, really honing in on those values, I have found, makes a huge difference. And if the values are visible right across the organization, it's easier to sustain. So value visibility to everyone, and understand that the flow of energy delivers on visible values, and visible values continue to generate that flow of energy. It's like an engine that keeps humming along. If the values are not visible, if the achievement of success is not visible, the flow of energy will slow down or stop altogether and may even reverse. If the flow of energy is not there, you're not actually going to generate any value in the organization. And keeping in mind that the perception of value is in the eye of the receiver. So let's say there's a change to the organization of a new implementation of new software. If the value of making that change is not visible to your employees, to the staff, they may say, no, we don't need to. We'll just wait for this change to go by, and we'll, hone in on the next one, because there's no visible value for me as the receiver of that change to make it happen. And so we want to make sure that the visibility of the value to everybody who is a stakeholder is sufficient to be sustain-able. And sustain-able, I separate specifically out because it's the ability to sustain, the ability to be a leader and consciously bring the visibility of the values to all, so that we can actually work towards the achievement of objectives. So if you've got these two, you've got values, awaken purpose, and your visible values and the flow of energy, what actually generates that? that make it necessary and sufficient to get that energy flowing and that rocket ship taking off. What I found in my career and journey is that it's a partnership. It's a partnership between leadership and followership. And the skills of both are needed. A leader without a follower is just an individual and actually doesn't have any resources or any oomph to continue and grow themselves or their business. They have to be able to be in partnership with their followers. A follower without a leader can get lost. This is where the short-term and the long-term objectives can get lost along the way, is if the followers don't have a leader actually showing them the way. Followers also are critically would desire a good, strong partner. A good, strong leader is going to help partner with them to co-create something that is brilliant beyond the belief of all of the people involved. And I've seen it. Partnership skills build people power. I've used this technique and I've used the processes to get there over and over again over at least 20 years of my 30-year career, getting to understand people and understand where they're coming from and building that people power and the energy to create, to co-create together. This is where values awaken purpose, and there are specific steps to get there, addressing needs, beliefs, the drive, what motivates, drives people, exposing and making sure that partnering is in place, building capacity for the gifts that people have to bring to the table, and enabling and empowering ownership over those gifts to serve the needs of that rocket ship launching. And then being conscious about value-driven steering practices that sustain the purpose on purpose delivery to get that rocket ship off the planet and generate that engine of visible values that create flow of energy, and flow of energy that creates visible values, and so on. And that all comes from resilience. Resilience is the tool to deal with shifts. Resonance is the tool to deal with trust and being response able. So consciously being able to respond in a way that builds and sustains and enables choice in your people power helps enable all of this to rocket out of the stratosphere. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Shelley and get any questions that you guys may have along the
The
way.
presentation indeed was too good, and I'm having some few questions. So I would like to ask the first question, and that is, what is the connection between business resilience and purpose?
Yeah, so businesses and individuals get lost when there's no purpose. Once you understand what that purpose is, then you are able to change up and change things in new ways that actually bring that resilience to play.
Okay, that's great. That's great. And my second question to you is that why separate sustain and able? How is that used actually?
Yeah, so it's the building the sense of being conscious about it. So we can sustain a lot of things in our lives, behaviors, attitudes, and so on. But if we are able to consciously sustain, then we are able to consciously deliver the results that we want on purpose. So if you want something to change, if you want a new approach to life or business, then you have to be conscious about being able to sustain that on a long-term basis. So many times we see short-term, we see a big uprising or protest or what have you. and it's great for that short period of time, and people's attention is on it, and so on. Same thing in business. There's a crisis. There's something happening, and people are working on it in that short period of time. But how do you sustain it? How are you able to sustain that on a long-term basis? And so that's why I've split those two words up.
Oh, that's fantastic, Sharon. And you have done justice to that question. And I come to the next question, and it is, how can short term and long term goals be successfully juggled when in the midst of crisis?
This is the biggest challenge, and this is the challenge organizations today are facing in a big way. A lot of companies have lost customers, have lost a lot of income, have lost revenue, and are at threat, at risk. And generally, the response that, or the reaction that people have to that at risk is fight, flight, freeze. It's the standard human reactions. Well, as an organization that's led by humans, it's not led by robots or other technology. It's actually led by humans. Well, humans tend to have the same reaction. Understanding what that reaction is and being able to turn that reaction into a proper response is what's necessary to keep that short-term and long-term objective in mind, making sure that your response that you're able to respond in those ways, and making sure that your staff and the people that work for you understand that vision, understand that long-term purpose, where you're trying to get to, and making and enabling them and empowering them to get through the short-term challenges along the way is definitely works. I've seen that work.
That's great. That's great. So, Sharon, my next question is, how can scarcity thinking be disrupted on working teams in order to shift energy to productive business growth?
Well, first of all, recognizing that scarcity thinking is at play.
Okay.
You have to know that it's there before you can actually respond to it. Some really interesting techniques help our body shift from the reactionary elements that are driven by our survival brain. So scarcity thinking triggers survival brain reactions, and survival brain reactions are never useful to meet long-term objectives. They're about survival, and survival is an instinctive response that generates an immediate short-term reaction. And so understanding and recognizing that it's there in the first place is really important. One of the really interesting things about human bodies and human systems is that we can interrupt that reaction by doing something that fulfills our body in some way, that serves a need, that actually fills a need up. The easiest, the simplest, the fastest way to disconnect the reaction from the response is to drink a glass of water. Surprisingly, is to drink
That's
water.
great.
And you fill up the body. Once the body has a need fulfilled, whatever that need is, whether it's hunger or thirst or you have to go to the bathroom, whatever it is, once that need is fulfilled, you disconnect the amygdala from the brain activity, and you're able to actually think again. You're able to take that and move it forward in new ways that never existed before.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Sharon, yeah, some very good audience of us, they have messaged me one small case study. So I'll just read, I'm just reading out that case study.
Okay.
Just try to help us out. There is a company. Okay. Now, the company profile, I'll just read out the company profile in front of you. That is a multinational communications corporation engaged in the manufacturing of mobile devices and
Okay.
network infrastructure headquartered in Finland. Founded in 1865 as a single paper mill operation. CEO is somebody, Mr. XYZ. Okay. Now that company failed, and I'll tell you the three reasons for the failure of that company. First reason is change in business environment. Second is unsuccessful agreement. And third is failed marketing strategies. Now, suppose if this CEO want to revive his company, so what all he should do for the success of his company?
Well, first of all, recognize that his company is built on people resources, and
Okay.
the power of people is important. Second thing is to look at what the marketing is serving and the messages to the customer, because the customer is also comprised of people.
Yes.
And understanding that together we can work this out. So rely on people, listen to the people, understand how they would build the organization, how they would like to see it, how they would like to express their gifts and their strengths in building the organization. And then creating that listening environment on a regular basis among all of the leaders in the organization with their staff. It's that culture shift.
Yeah.
And if an organization has that culture shift and the ability to actually listen to people on a regular basis, they'll be able to sustain their success on a long-term basis and revive the company and move it forward.
So in this case, can we go for the entire resettling of the resources and revamping of the entire staff? I mean, I'm talking about appointing a new efficient staff, proper planning, and the market survey, and the new strategies to be developed. Because here the three reasons for the failure quoted was change in business environment,
Yep.
unsuccessful agreement, and failed marketing strategies. So do you think that planning of new marketing strategies can be done by doing the market survey and all?
I think that the second one, the second failure point, is actually critical. Is
Okay.
unsuccessful
Unsuccessful agreement.
agreement, and
Yeah.
if you can't agree, if you can't get successful agreement, then no matter what you do, what messaging that you have in marketing, it's not going to work. Because you have to be able to agree to work together in order to generate the success that you're looking for. So
Okay.
having listening conversations to me has been one of the biggest successes in my career, and the biggest way to help organizations do that shift and pivot in changing times that they're facing along the way.
Fine. So Sharon, what about the killer results?
Killer results. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, People are amazing. People are brilliant. People are the biggest power and resource an organization has. And let me tell you, when you energize and unleash that creative side of the people working for you, and you actually give them the power and authority to do the work in the way that they can best serve that long-term purpose, and you keep it visible in their eyes along the way without triggering the scarcity thinking, you can
That's great.
you, you can achieve killer results. And I've seen it. I've actually done it with a number of different projects that I've worked on in a number of different organizations that I worked with. It works every single time. Unleash the potential of the people power, and you will get killer results every single time.
Okay, that's good. That's good. And see, there are lots of audience who are watching us. So, what are the three key insights you would love to give our audience as far as the business resilience is considered?
I think that the one is to recognize the power of people and partnership, and that leaders are not the only part of the team. The other part of the team has to be recognized and supported, and provided with that unleashed opportunity to share their gifts and their skills along the way. So leadership plus followership equals partnership. Recognizing that is critically important. The second thing I'd like to say to people is keeping an eye on the values and understanding how values lead purpose. and making sure that the values are all aligned on a regular basis, not just with the organizational purpose and the talking the talk. You need to walk that talk and actually empower and enable the people resources to align their own personal values with the corporation's values. And that helps to unleash and awaken all of that absolutely incredible energy that can achieve that rocket ship success. And then the third thing is to be sustainable, to be conscious about it, and deliberate in terms of providing the leadership and the organizational directions necessary at those specific critical junctures along the way when shifting sands start to play, is to consciously be able to sustain the energy over time. So those are the three things I would like to
That's
impart.
great. That's great, Sharon. And one my last question to you is like I've just received the message in the group that our audience are very keen to know about your success journey. Like you are a successful business leader, but there can be ups and downs in your life. There can be certain challenges which you have met, which you might have met in your course of this journey. So can you please tell us about your success journey, the challenges and the milestones you've achieved?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a rocky journey. It's been a roller coaster ride. And I mean, I got laid off 8 different times. So think about it. Just one time can kill somebody. Can just death of spirit energy. But persistence and coming back at it and making sure that the next time around I'm successful, number one. But number two, most important, is actually that I am sustaining myself along the way and not burning myself out, and not getting into those places and spaces of scarcity and anxiety myself, so that I can actually lead the team in a way that helps them do the same thing and be resilient and empowered, and owning what their true gift is, being celebrated for it and appreciated. One of the things that I did in one of my last projects was I created something called the appreciation game. And this was a huge turning point on this team that I was working with. The team that I was working with, they were shooting arrows at everybody. The project team was against the IT team. The IT team was against the project team. The client was being seen as dispensable and not really important voice in the conversation, and that's a client. you know, Everything
Seriously.
was disconnected. And so I got in there and I started treating my team as people and appreciating them for what they brought to the table. So we do weekly um, meetings, right? This is just standard practice. You do weekly meetings. So we did a weekly meeting, and I would bring in the appreciation game to the meetings. So every meeting, we would pull a name from a hat, and that person's name, everybody around the table, and the table, by the way, was remote as well as in person. So we had people from across the country, around the world, in on the call, and every person would appreciate the named um, individual for something that they know about that person, for something they've done with that person in terms of their working environment and so on. What magic that actually generated was absolutely phenomenal. Now, at first, the person who was appreciated was very uncomfortable at first, and so the first few times it took a little bit for the team to start getting, but oh my goodness, we started to include the client. We started to include IT outside of the project team. We started to include the other voices and appreciate other voices. So it was a ripple effect of appreciation that occurred. And one of the team members, he came into my open door office at that time and he said, this is the first time in my career that I've ever felt listened to. And it's like, wow. And he said, I have an idea that I'd like to share with you. And so I got out of him, I got a brand new direction for the project team that broke through 3 barriers that we were facing at the time. And I would not have gotten that from him if he didn't feel listened to and appreciated using the appreciation game. It's a very simple technique, but when you treat people like people, when you appreciate people for who they are and the gifts that they bring, what you get in return is like tenfold the effort and energy it's taken to do that. So I hope that answers the question.
Interesting. This was one of the best answers, Sharon. I have listened from you, and connected to this question only. You should tell our audience that Sharon was a born leader, born business leader, or you ventured out into becoming a successful business leader.
Yeah, I mean, even when I was young, I would always lead. It's just a natural thing is whenever there was a void in leadership, I would step in and just lead. It's one of those things. But I failed miserably as a leader several times. And, I failed my team. I didn't do the things that the team needed to be successful. And then I went and I learned what I did wrong. I learned what that was that could have been done differently. And then I did it differently and got different results. And so it's trial and error in a leadership journey. A leader is not infallible. A leader is a person too. A leader is subject to survival brain thinking and scarcity thinking and so on themselves. So, accommodating that in your leader and in your followers is what really opens up the door to real partnership occurring.
Okay. I might sound diplomatic, Sharon, but being a feminist, I have to find out this answer from you that what does Sharon feel about, like who are the most successful business leaders? Female business leaders or male business leaders?
Interesting question. We actually don't have a whole lot of female business leaders to see. That visibility is not there, and it's been a square peg in a round hole kind of circumstance where, as a woman, in the business world, in the corporate business world, I found a lot of the ways that I failed my team members was because I became too masculine, because
Oh,
that's what
wow.
the environment required, right? And
That
I
was the
became
demand of the situation, I believe.
exactly, focused, results
Okay.
driven, ruthless.
Okay.
I got told many times, put your big girl panty on and fire that person.
Oh my
You know,
God.
like, right? And so it's like when I started to actually bring in the feminine powers, the ones that we don't recognize, we don't appreciate, that's when the change really started to occur in organizations. And, some of the key leaders in women leading in, the one that I refer to a lot is Jacinda in New Zealand, the premier, and she's like brought in the feminine powers, the feminine quality into politics, which allowed New Zealand to go through the pandemic in a much better, faster way and safer way to the population, because she was thinking about the population first and foremost and not about her political career. So, when I see that kind of leadership, whether it's male or female, I don't care. When I see that kind of leadership, that's the
Yes.
leadership that I want to follow.
Yes. Irrespective of the gender, but whoever is the best is the best. That's nice.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because there's many male leaders who have the power of the feminine practices as part of their DNA, their makeup. They're also really important in teaming, and understanding the whole concept of team and utilizing it in a way that empowers and enables the team members to succeed in brilliant ways. Men are really good at that. Women, not so
Correct.
much, but men are really good at that. So, as long as we are working on the people side, as long as an organization and a leader are getting the appreciation for the people who are the power of the organization, and you actually see that visibly, those are the leaders I like to follow.
That's great. That's great, Sharon. And it was love and fun, talking to you, chatting to you, and how interestingly you were giving the answers to whatever questions I asked, and your presentation was marvelous. And though I have many, many more questions to ask, but because of the time constraint, I'll not hold you back. But yes, this is an open offer and invitation to you that you will soon return to Infinite Rec Power Global Talks once again. Okay,
I
but
would.
I really enjoyed hosting you, Sharon.
Awesome, my pleasure.
Yeah. So I would maintain that thanks are the highest form of thought, and that gratitude is happiness doubled by wonder. Joy is the simplest form of gratitude, and we would celebrate our joy by felicitating our special guest, Miss Sharon from Canada, by a small token of appreciation by the founder of Rec Talks, Mr. Ratish Gupta. I'm honored, Sharon, that you have accepted our invite and enlightened our audience with your power thoughts. Thank you so much. And I would like to give this small token of appreciation from Mr. Ratish Gupta.
Awesome, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Okay. Any last piece of words you want to tell to our audience before we, say bye bye to everybody?
The one thing is, look around you and look at the people in your world and figure out a way to unleash their potential. If you do it and 1,000 other people do it, the ripple effect will change the world.
That's great. That's great, Sharon. The ripple effect will change the world. That was the most powerful sentence you spoke on the show before I say bye bye. So, thank you so much, Sharon. On behalf of Infinite Rec Power Global Talks, thank you so much for accepting the invite and for enlightening the guest with your an audience with your power thoughts. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah. Bye bye, everybody.